Good afternoon. Hi everyone. I'm Naomi Alexander, one of the product consultants here at LinkedIn.
And my name's Claire Weeks and I'm a product consultant out of our Sydney office.
And both Claire and I work in the product consulting team, which largely involves partnering with our existing clients to make sure that you get the most out of the solutions. And I know there are some familiar faces here in the audience, so it's great to see you all here today. And really being able to work with our clients to get the most out of what the dream is, the LinkedIn all-elusive, moving from that reactive state to proactive recruitment.
And we're really excited to have a guest here on stage with us today. So Nick Hutchinson is one of our clients based out of Melbourne. He's the National Resources and Talent Manager for McConnell Dowell.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm excited to be here. It's not normally something I do on a daily basis. Just a bit about my role and the company and the structure of the HR and recruitment team. My position in the corporate office looks at the strategy, the process, governance, systems around our resourcing. And we have a number of teams based around Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria and Western Australia who have a combined HR and recruitment role, and they service the projects that we work on. McConnell Dowell is a company. We are a construction contractor. We build large projects, mostly in large civil infrastructure, mechanical, marine, rail, tunnels, pipelines. These are the types of projects that my company builds. Big scale jobs. At the moment, we would have about $3 billion of work in hand, and we are bidding for a lot more. But we're quite cyclical in our nature of work. We have projects that start and finish. So, from a resourcing perspective, recruitment is a challenge. And certainly the LinkedIn tool has been extremely helpful to date in getting us the right people at the right time.
And Nick, what's LinkedIn solution? What products do you have at the moment?
Well, when I started, I've been with the company for nearly 3 years. We had the basic page. It was essentially a paragraph about the company, and there was no traction, there was no interest in it. So we invested in the silver page for a year, and that really was the start of the journey. We posted a number of videos on there. We posted a lot of updates about the business and what we're doing, and we started to see our followers grow. So after a year, we thought, well, this is working better than we expected. And it was proposed to me that we look at upgrading our package again. For the right reasons, of course. We were a growing business. We needed a lot of people in a short period of time. So we undertook a pilot exercise from our silver page into the gold page, which lasted for about 3 months. Mm-hmm. And that pilot was once again extremely successful. We looked at the data quite regularly and thought this is an investment that is going to be worth its time for us. So after that 3 months, we made the investment into the gold page, of which we started in January this year, and we're continuing on that journey at the moment.
And as well as that media, you also have a couple of recruiter seats that you spread across your team.
We do. We have 3 recruiter seats. We don't have a recruiter license for every person who does recruitment. That's a strategic decision based on the volume of work and the people availability to do that work. So we have 3 recruiter licenses at the moment, and that works quite well for us at this point in time. We only have 5 or 6 people in the company who look after sort of recruitment work across Australia. So we are pretty short on resources for the recruitment space.
And so really just to set the expectations of today's session, and as you hear from Nick's story, it doesn't really matter what size your organisation is, whether you're a lean, mean organisation or you're perhaps a bit larger with many resources. The idea for today is really understanding that this is complex. As Dan alluded to in the earlier session, that this is one of those things that is hitting the industry unlike something that we've seen in the last 100 years. So we don't expect it to be easy, and we do expect that you are going to walk away with today some tips to really be practical in how you can embed this as part of the way you do business, and really recognise that it will take time. And really being able to articulate benefits to stakeholders perhaps that don't fully get it is hopefully what you're going to get out of today. And just for us and our own interest, who here in the room really sees themselves in that infancy stage of just beginning in your organisation to talk about that shift from reactive to proactive? If I get a show of hands.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, so the majority there. Anyone here who's more sort of in the mid stages, feeling like they're sort of the midpoint? Yeah, couple. And anyone by chance feeling like they're at the top of their game, they've mastered it, they're just here to see what are we going to talk about today? So you're more than welcome to join us.
I see a hand.
Yeah, and you know, it's certainly, it progresses, and we do expect that we're going to have a lot of people here wanting to know what does it take to start out. So Nick, thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Good stuff. So as Nay mentioned, we're going to take you on a journey, and we're going to break that down into 10 tips. And number one is really to identify your destination. So the hands really went up when people mentioned that they're at the beginning of their journey. And we want to really emphasize that it is a scary place to be. A lot of people are going to need to be encouraged and walked and handheld along this journey, and the change management process that's involved in that. So what does it mean to be reactive? We really see that as working requisition to requisition, and to also being very driven by your hiring manager. I was in recruitment a couple of years ago working in-house for a law firm, and we were incredibly reactive. Sometimes I dreaded that hiring manager walking down the corridor because I just thought, gosh, give me one day to figure out what I'm doing instead of putting another requisition on my desk. So it's not a very comfortable state to work in, and you always typically feel on the back foot. So being able to identify where you are at the moment and where you want to go, and that sort of nirvana, that elusive state, is that proactive recruitment. And when you're there, you're typically going to be on the front foot and be working very actively with your partners across the business. And what we typically see when you're at that proactive stage is that your talent acquisition objectives are actually in line and in sync with the organisational objectives. And Nick, it would be great to hear why you felt you had to go on this journey. So where were you before?
When I first started with the business, we were very reactive. We used recruitment agencies a lot, more than I'd ever experienced before. So I thought, we've got to do this better. How can we do this ourselves? How can we reduce costs? And how can we increase and enhance our brand? So the LinkedIn side of things was, for me, a very wise and easy solution to implement. Taking away from the agencies and really putting that strategy back into our recruitment and HR teams to say, guys, you've got to go out there and do this. Use the LinkedIn platform to leverage the company, the brand, and go out there and find the people has worked really well. So throughout, we've reduced costs by not having to pay agency fees, which, as we know, are enormous, and we've increased the brand profile at the same time. So it was an easy win.
And we all at LinkedIn here love metrics, and we love data, and we love being able to measure where we've been, how the journey's progressing, and where we end up. So Nick, how will you know you've arrived? How will you know that you've reached that destination of success?
Yeah, good question. I think when we start making 50% of our appointments via LinkedIn, I think that will be a measure of success. And look, we're always looking to increase our followers as well. That's quite a tangible thing that we can look at and see how many people are actually interested in knowing about our business. So constantly looking at those followers and aiming to see them go north are some of the recipes there.
Good stuff.
So when we think about, here in the room today, we're all quite happy with the concept of the shift, but sometimes it's underestimating that those around us perhaps aren't on that journey yet with us, or perhaps they need a little bit more communication to understand the why, or the scenario of, well, what's the driver for why we're moving to this state. And if we look at the chart up there, and it's probably a little hard to see up the back, but essentially over time, we need to be able to look at individuals in the organisation, whether that's our fellow colleagues, our team members, our hiring managers, and understand, have we adequately really had that awareness of where we are today, that current state, and why we need to change, but also that desire, like, what's in it for me as an individual to actually make the move? Has anything else changed that would then align to, as you say, the business objectives? And then what Claire and I see a lot of in our role is perhaps that misperception that if we just chuck training at it, it'll change, but we don't invest up front the awareness and the desire as to why we actually need to do things a bit differently. And then we form ourselves as individuals around ability, and once we can start to do things, our processes and our systems are also starting to take shape in a different way so that there aren't any barriers to actually progressing. Our workload might start to shift, and then it's reinforced through the organisation. And I know, Nick, in your case, you've got a small but geographically dispersed team. How did you go about communication in that regard?
Look, it's still a work in progress, to be honest. And I think you said at the start, Claire, moving from reactive to proactive is not easy. It's quite complex. There's a lot of stakeholders involved, a lot of people who are unsure about LinkedIn. They're not quite sure why we use it or what it's for. They think Facebook, they think LinkedIn. They have all sorts of funny ideas. Certainly from coming back to the HR and recruitment team, they're on board. I think it's important to get the people who are out there day-to-day operationally on board first. There was limited education and sort of selling to do to them because they saw the benefits of the LinkedIn tool and how it can actually assist them in doing their job. So getting the HR team and recruitment team on board first was the main objective. And then, look, as I said, it's still a work in progress throughout the organisation. I see this as being something that will take a long time to get everybody on board, but it's a situation that we face and that we will attack as we need to. But that reinforcement, talking to hiring managers, really giving them the insight of what LinkedIn does, how it assists us and the brand is something that we do. And once they are explained the benefits, they turn around reasonably quickly.
Excellent. So we figured out where we were or where we are if we're reactive. We know there's a gap and we know that we want to get somewhere else, and that's to be proactive. So our stage, after we figured out the change management process that we're going to have to take our team through, is really to review our own internal capability and to understand that we're going to be the ones driving this, and to understand if we have the ability within our existing team or if we need to do some upskilling or some retraining or even some rehiring and allocation of roles and responsibilities. So looking at that structure and the capability is really the first proactive stage that you're going to make on this journey. You can't do it by yourself. It's a long road to take, but having support from all areas of the business is really going to help you on your way. And at LinkedIn, Nate and myself, and I'm sure Nick would agree, that having support from the top down is really key. And having your senior leadership team and your executives on board with great LinkedIn profiles and speaking confidently about the journey that you're going on is something that we're really keen to hear Nick's experience of. So how did you get that support from the executives?
Look, my executive team have been terrific. They're very open-minded, but they want to see what sort of return on investment they get, what the bang for the buck. So they gave us the leeway for the goal page, which was terrific. And I think through time they've been able to see the data, the analytics of where we've got to and where we're at now. So certainly I think that they still collectively there's still an education piece to get them all on board with what this means, but they are happy for us to use it. They see it as an excellent tool, and the executive are fully on board with it, which I think, as you said, without their support, this wouldn't happen.
Good stuff. And another area of the business that you typically have to re-educate is those hiring managers, so those people who have the requisitions that they're going to ask you to work on. So, Nick, how have you managed to engage them and to get them on board with you?
Yeah, it's a challenge. We have some hiring managers who are fantastic, who are very proactive in LinkedIn, and they actually get on LinkedIn and network themselves and find candidates for the recruitment team, which when you see that for me is some success. That's terrific, and that's what I'd like to see more hiring managers doing. So
it's a journey.
It's a journey. There are some pockets where there's resistance and defensiveness, and that's understandable. As I said earlier, some people just don't understand what LinkedIn is or what it means. So we have a lot of hiring managers across the company, across all of Australia, and as you said, geographically dispersed, so getting that face-to-face time with them is not easy. So really having the collective team all on board, I think, is a journey that we aim to get to. That's utopia at one stage. But look, it's a work in progress.
Thanks.
Great. And really, as you say, having that geographically dispersed team, multiple stakeholders, really setting that plan of action and having that visible for everyone is really key. So being organised, it's something that we do as recruiters, but nothing changes in this instance either. It's really having that roadmap that you use for transparent and really clear objectives that everyone understands. What are those milestones? What are those markers that will indicate that we've made progress and those benefits? And really, working with other teams, particularly if you are a smaller organisation, looking for others in there to give you support. So whether it's marketing or if you have an employer branding function, how can you share some of that effort and really broaden that conversation? And I know that at your organisation, Nick, you do have a marketing function. How have you been partnering with them?
We do have a very small marketing team sitting in our Melbourne office. They're reasonably new on board as a team as well. They've grown over the last 6 months. So originally the LinkedIn side approach was HR driven, recruitment and HR driven. because there wasn't a large marketing team to sort of support that. So now that that marketing team is established, their feet are on the ground, we are aligning with them moving forward on LinkedIn. The value that they will add is yet to be seen, but I'm confident that they will partner with us to promote this in the right way, through the right mediums, internally and externally. But to date, it has been HR and recruitment driven, only because of necessity, but moving forward, there will be an alignment with marketing and HR.
Excellent. So we reached number 5 on our 10 tips of making this transition, and establishing your credibility is what we come to next. So really understanding that brand ambassador mindset and having the confidence and the comfort level to go out into the business and let them know that you're leading this journey that they're going on. Obviously enhancing team profiles, so making sure your own LinkedIn profile is robust and complete, but also filtering that down and coaching your hiring managers and your executives and senior leadership team to understand the value that that's going to bring and the benefit to the business. So really having that candidate experience at the forefront is something that we consistently reinforce with our clients. And Nick, I know it's you've got some great stories about how you rolled this out in the business.
Look, I don't know if they're great stories. Excuse me. We, in terms of the communication piece, look, the executive team, their buy-in is really important, and certainly they promote that and talk to. I hope they talk about it to others amongst their peers when they're in events like this or just with clients. The way that we've promoted this and communicated it has been on many fronts. It's been verbal, it's been written. We have an intranet, which is going to be a fantastic portal for this to be promoted. And through all of our advertising, we always have the LinkedIn logo at the bottom and people that attracts them to our company page. So I think we have a full 360 approach on how we've communicated this to the business, but geographically dispersed and with some old school mentalities there, we still have that work to go, and that's, as I said, a work in progress.
So there has been some resistance that you've observed in areas where people perhaps aren't as comfortable with the social recruiting model?
There have been. People are dismissive of it. They think that it's going to either create extra work for themselves. People don't like getting tapped on the shoulder or approached from third parties without knowing about them personally. So some people just refuse to have anything to do with LinkedIn, which, look, I can understand that. It's not ideally what I'd like to see, especially with more senior managers and the executive. They're all on board with it, but I think some of them are a bit timid still around the benefits of LinkedIn. But that's a challenge for me and for my team to really hone back to the benefits. The data speaks for itself. We are increasing our brand, we're lowering our costs, and we're getting happier employees. So those things, when you put that package together, people are quite happy to come around to those thoughts quite quickly.
And then as we talk about that importance of positioning ourselves internally and building that credibility, it's also about extending that external facing piece. You know, as recruiters, we are the face of our organisation, and really being able to, talk about innovation through learning from other industries and other colleagues. And certainly that doesn't change. You know, it's about having that open approach, developing a wider profile, perhaps even utilising LinkedIn to position yourself as a thought leader, and using things such as being able to publish your own original content. Everyone can have a share of voice via LinkedIn, through other forums, groups and such. And I think also, as you're doing today, Nick, being able to talk externally and really putting your brand out there, and I'd love to hear, what's this done for you and your organisation?
Look, the cliche of employer of choice gets bandied around a lot. There's many definitions of it, but certainly that's where we want to get to. From a recruitment perspective, I think when you have people who want to work for your company, they go out of their way to try and get a job with you, that's a great recipe for success. To have the mindset of those people who are aligned with the culture of the business and are interested in the work, for me, LinkedIn helps that immensely. So that employer of choice is something that we're always looking for, and that the LinkedIn side of things is great. I like candidates or the passive market to be quite self-serving. We will put the information on there, but we expect them to go on and have a look at the updates that we put on, or to find more about us, or to network with people who are in our organisation. So having that ability for the passive market to really know more about us, probably more, comparing it to our corporate website, where we still have a lot of information, the dynamic ability of LinkedIn to be able to update things quickly, and it's something new. I mean, people go into websites day after day, but a LinkedIn page for me, and I get the feedback from people in the market, is that it's more interactive, it's a lot more fun, and they enjoy it more than going onto a corporate website. So I'll take that any day.
So you mentioned, Nick, leveraging those assets and really making sure that you filtered the why of having a LinkedIn profile and the collateral that you've got across the business. And we see here a great graph, which actually, kudos to Nick, is out of date because I believe he's closer to 20,000 followers now. Yep, excellent. So this is a couple of weeks out of date. But Nick mentioned previously that he's really set the metric of having his company followers edge closer towards that 30,000 mark as idea that he's reached his destination. So leveraging those assets, particularly the hiring managers and your employees, and really being the brand of choice and having that employee referral program in place. And Nick, I know you mentioned previously that you'd had some candidates approach you directly after seeing the work that you'd done. So having to get that ROI from the assets that you're putting out there. And you had a great story that you're happy to share.
Yeah, there was a good story, a recent story actually. There was a person who now works for our organisation who had been following McConnell Dow for a couple of months actually, and was interested in our business, and what I explained earlier, that person was right on board. I then actually advertised for the position of a national operations manager for one of our business units. The person saw the ad and instead of applying straight away, knew that I was looking after that position and contacted me via LinkedIn. And we started a bit of an in-mail communication back and forth, which led to phone calls, which led to a face-to-face discussion. That person went through the recruitment process and ultimately got the job, which was a terrific result for us and for him. It saved us a heck of a lot of money in terms of not having to go to an agency, if that's where it ultimately led to. But certainly the buy-in that this person had, he was already on second or third base before we even met. So a lot of the sell, the thing that you would normally do when you're at a recruitment stage, that had already been done. So we spoke about the future and what that person could offer and making sure that there's a strong cultural alignment. We knew he had the IQ, it was the EQ that we really needed to measure. So since he's come on board, he's also now sharing information and following, getting more people on board and sharing our stories with others. So getting him into our system in a senior position and now seeing him farm out to others is just is really pleasing.
Excellent. And anyone in the audience this morning would have heard the Rapid 7 story and the pretty stringent metric that the speaker had set himself about the percentage of hires that he wanted to come from his employee referral program. So Nick, do you sort of filter down through your organisation that you're open to hearing from candidates that they think might be suitable working with you?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have an internal referral program as well, but I still think there's work for us to do in terms of leveraging our employees, getting more testimonials from them, and certainly having those people networking a lot more with the people in the industry that are like-minded. For me, I think we still have some work to do there. That's part of the overall communication process, but it's something that I'm very keen to see happen a lot more, and perhaps we'll even reward that in some way, shape or form. I'm not sure yet, but having our employees being the recruiters for us, not just our recruitment team, through LinkedIn is a big tick in the box.
Step 8. If you have invested in LinkedIn Recruiter, leverage it and really make sure that it is part of your team's day-to-day or your day-to-day. We've designed LinkedIn Recruiter to really mirror the workflow of a day-to-day process. So in fact, it's just making sure that you carve out some time to spend time in it, get to know it. You can't break it. You're able to use your recruiter license to search candidates broader than your personal profile and your personal network. And you're able to in-mail candidates and have that warm outreach, find out something about them, and really start to think about ways to share best practices as a team. So where you know that there is someone who uses Recruiter really well, sharing that perhaps in a lunch and learn session to really say, well, what works with your candidates in this market, and can we leverage that elsewhere? For some of you have already starting to look at pipelining, which is a little bit more in that midpoint of the journey, where you start to look at things like adding statuses and tags, to candidates information that's not on their profile, and that really all helps you to really build out towards this proactive recruitment and really track your data. So LinkedIn as a function will give you the ability to analyse and report on the health of your pipeline at any given time. And I know, Nick, you mentioned that some of your team have a recruiter licence. How's that been sort of implemented and utilised on a day-to-day basis?
It's been implemented well. I like the recruiter licences for our business. It gives access to information quite quickly. You can go a little bit deeper into candidate profiles. And the emails, I think, is a really powerful communication tool. The more emails that you send out, as long as they're written eloquently and professionally in that sense, great. When you get the responses back, that's when you know the rubber is hitting the road or not. We've spoken about the talent brand index. Certainly having more responses back to emails does raise your talent brand index, and it certainly increases the profile of the brand and the company. So the recruiter license is, I think, one of the most powerful parts of it, apart from the searching, is that email function that people, especially those who are already following the company, they want to hear from you. They're waiting for that email from employers that they wish to work for. So that's been a really positive tool. And certainly from a recruitment perspective, I share that information with the team. So when we get the reports back on how many emails they've sent and been received, that information is shared. It's there so that everyone understands who's busy, who's not, who's working in the sense of emails going out and getting back. Is there something that person's doing that this person's not, because there's a difference in the responses. So we look at all those things as well, which is good.
It's great, and I think it really lends to positioning yourselves as having data to make informed decisions when you're talking to hiring managers.
Absolutely. And look, even in quiet times, quiet times in recruitment, I don't think there is such a thing. The quiet times is when you should be, getting your talent pipeline ready, getting people who are like-minded individuals who want to work for your business in the starting blocks, so when you do have that opportunity, they're ready to go.
So we reached tip number 9 on our journey to proactive recruitment, and we really want to emphasise that you're going to have this pool of people who are interested in you as an employer. Nick mentioned the metric that he uses as the number of followers on his LinkedIn company page, something that he is very mindful of on a daily basis. So you've got these people who've come to you and clicked a button and asked to be kept up to date with your information. So really stressing the need to promote best practices and content and thought leadership across that pool, and having that interest only increase and being able to track and have metrics against that. So constantly engaging with them and not just sharing new opportunities. So obviously you want to let them know that you're hiring and the opportunities that are available to them, but also sharing company news and industry news. And sometimes it's the weirdest things that typically gets the clicks and the engagement on LinkedIn. That meme that you put up on a Friday afternoon that was funny, or the strange cat picture that somebody liked and popped on the page. It doesn't have to be about a job or your company or the great things that you're doing, something that's just going to engage your audience and make them want to find out more. So, Nick, I know that you mentioned there's certain mediums that get better click-through rates.
The videos for us are a big hit. In a construction industry, people like to visually see the remote sites that we work on or the equipment that we use, and actually seeing things being built. Not many people get the opportunity to go onto construction sites who aren't in the construction industry. So the videos, the bigger the better. There was a recent one of a project of ours in New Zealand where we had a huge, it's called a tunnel boring machine. It's the 3rd largest in the world. And that got a lot of attention, big boys and toys and that sort of thing. It had a lot of click-through rate. So videos for us, I think, are really important, especially in our industry. But the updates as well. As long as we've got a constant flow of information going onto our page, there's an internal communications person that assists HR and marketing with updating those things regularly. We have a lot of joint venture projects and sensitive information that sometimes can't be released to the public, so that person's been tasked with ascertaining what can be released, and if it can be, I'm in their ear every day saying, get that onto LinkedIn. And as soon as it goes on, within hours, the people are talking about it, it's being shared. So I think having a dedicated person or persons who are responsible for getting that sort of information onto the page as quickly as possible is fantastic.
And I think that's a key point to make. We've talked about how it's sometimes overwhelming just to have it sitting in the responsibility of yourself or your own team. So really being able to leverage your marketing or communication communications team and what's going out on your intranet, deciding if it's suitable for the rest of the world and popping it on your page as well. Previously, that was only the capability of the company page administrator, but some of you who are a bit more familiar with this area of LinkedIn will know that actual recruiter seat holders can now push information out to your audience. So you'll see on the screen the ability to do the follower updates. That's something that your seat holders can do, and you can also tailor content to particular audiences. So if you're targeting people in mining in China, for example, and you have a great white paper, you can simply select that within the recruiter and push that information out to them. Likewise with the emails, that capability is there to keep reaching out to people and keep that talent pool warm and interested and engaged in what you're doing. So they might not be suitable for a role that you're dealing with now, but at least you're on the radar screen and they know who you are, what you do, that you're an employer of choice, and you'll be appearing in their newsfeed on LinkedIn.
And finally, we get to step 10, and we're really acknowledging that it is a continuous process of reviewing, reflecting, taking stock of where we are, whether we need to course correct if things haven't gone to plan, because this isn't happening in isolation. You know, we're all very well aware that LinkedIn is a small part of what you're doing to transform, but it is a part that will, as we mentioned, technology is an enabler, but not on its own. So it's really about giving us the chance to utilise the data that you get from LinkedIn to help inform the decisions that you make, and really celebrating those successes along the way. You know, as we say, this is complex, but it doesn't need to be something that everyone fears. And if we can really celebrate the stories and share that best practice, we know from our experience that actually really helps energise people along the way. And Nick, I know you started to share information, but was that the case that you had always shared information with your team?
No, it wasn't, and not to hide information. It was information that they needed to understand, and the reporting, the analytics. I mean, I run my own reports, and when I do, or if I receive a report from LinkedIn, I'll share that with the team. They're educated now, and the more information that they have at their fingertips and what that means and how we're tracking, because if they don't know and they think we're off this way, but we're actually down that path, it just makes sure everyone is aligned. So yes, the information is shared as regularly as I get it. I also catch up with my account manager, James Burns. Shout out to James, where are you? Each quarter, and we sit down and look at the data as well. And the purpose of looking at that each quarter is to make sure that we are tracking appropriately or not. And we make tweaks and adjustments as we need to on our page and pages to ensure that we are targeting the right people. And the Talent Brand Index, I want to see it continue to go north, as well as our followers. And James will tell me if something's working or it's not working. To date, it's been more good stories than bad, so it's been really pleasing to hear that the things that we have invested in have been strategic, they've been well thought out. We haven't rushed into anything. You know, the saying of, you know, you crawl, then you walk, then you run. That's probably the way that we at McConnell Dale have done it, is starting out with something quite basic, moving into the silver page and now moving to the gold page was done over a staggered period of time with a lot of intention, and we looked at the results all of the way along that journey and still continue to look at them now. So we know that if we are focusing on a certain discipline of person or an area in Australia that we know we are trying to recruit people from, we can make adjustments to our marketing and to our branding to make sure that we are approaching the right people at the right time. So the reporting and the data is extremely important. And without that, my executive wouldn't have a bar of it. They want to see something that's tangible. They want to see that their return on investment means something. And you know, simple stories like explained earlier about the person actually getting a job via LinkedIn. I mean, my CEO would be loving that story about how much money that saved potentially from a recruitment fee. So in some sense, that almost pays for the LinkedIn side of itself, and everything else is a bonus. So the reporting is very, very, very powerful.
Well, we reached the end of our journey from moving from reactive to proactive recruitment, and big thanks to Nick for joining us on the stage and sharing where he sits in this journey. Thank you. Now, I know we do have a couple of minutes left, so if anyone has any questions or thoughts or interest in the steps that we talked through, please do feel free to pop your hand up and we can get a mic to you. Don't be shy.
You're amongst friends.
Yeah.
your thoughts around leveraging your assets. When it comes to employee referrals, I know that Rapid7 spoke about 50% employee referrals. Do you think there is a too high a level to reach for employee referrals in the case of jeopardising, in affecting diversity? So too like-minded? So if you make your target too high, are you compromising in any way?
I hope not. The target of more than half of our appointments via LinkedIn is a target. We had to start somewhere. Our diversity, we still have diversity programs and ambitions, and we still focus on them throughout the whole journey. So employee referrals are great. They're not always the be-all and end-all, but we certainly look at employee referrals at the same way we would look at an external person. And with all of our diversity in mind, our approach to Indigenous employment and providing training and opportunities are all considered as well as with the employee referral. So I hope that through LinkedIn, that people are coming through the LinkedIn channel and into our business that way. If we can get more than half of the people coming into the company through that method, I think that would be a fantastic result.
Hi there. Just wondering, how do you reward your consultants that embrace LinkedIn and have, created a lot of success for you?
Pat on the back.
No bonus?
I won't go into the structure of how we remunerate our people, but look, they get bonuses at the end of the year if the company does well. But we don't at the moment. We don't give them any incentives, or like Rapid7 provide a bonus to their consultants when they make a placement. We don't do that.
We do work with some clients where it can be as small as letting somebody go home at lunchtime on a Friday if they hit the metrics that you've put in place or the KPIs related to LinkedIn. So obviously we've heard people talk about monetary awards, but there are smaller things that some of our clients put in place to reward the people that are using the tool effectively and hitting the KPIs they've got in place.
There's certainly recognition when people do make those placements through LinkedIn. There is a celebration, certainly within the HR team and the hiring manager, but no other sort of financial benefits at this stage.
One more question? Sure.
Hey there, Nick. I'm wondering how you increased your followers so significantly on your company webpage. What strategies did you actually use?
Everything I described before. Certainly from our LinkedIn page, where we came from to where we got to, I think, was a huge leap. It was a very basic page to start with. It was quite literally 2 paragraphs, and that was it. So moving from that into a more dynamic page with the silver page was, I think, a very big leap for us to go forward. The content that we had on there was in depth. It gave a lot of information that people couldn't access from our website, because the corporate website can be static sometimes, whereas LinkedIn is very dynamic. You can update it every 5 minutes if you need to. So the difference, I think, was that moving out of the basic into that silver page and now onto the gold page, and it's a snowball effect that once it starts to get momentum, it just gets bigger and bigger, and it's really, really satisfying to see those followers increase and improve. I hope it continues. I hope it gets to 100,000. The sky's the limit. We've set ourselves at a limit of 30,000, which is only 10,000 away. In the last 6 months, we've done 10,000. So I'm hoping that by the end of this year, fingers crossed, we can get to 30,000. But I think a lot of it comes back to putting that time and effort into the page, keeping things updated, and keeping your audience captive and interested in your company. They will then self-serve and help promote your business to their networks and their friends. So I think it's a lot of investment into the page.
Excellent. I think we're out of time, guys. So thanks so much for your attention this afternoon. And again, a big thanks to Nick for joining us on the stage.